Hi guys, welcome to the full comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A72 and the Galaxy A52. This is the most in-depth comparison between these phones, and first of all I am shooting this video in 4K at 30 frames per second from the front camera. I'll one by one show you the images and videos in all the common modes on both the phones, but right now this video is being recorded in the highest resolution available on both the phones. So this is going to be a comparison of each and everything between these phones. I mean to say, I am going to compare the specs, the design, the build, the features, the software, everything that you need to know. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button and hit the like button if you find this video good enough at some point. This video is going to give you an idea about the stability, the voice recording quality, and all aspects of the camera. Let's switch the resolution now. This is now 1080p at 60 frames per second. Of course, the stability is not as good as it is in 30 frames per second, but surprisingly it looks quite good to me. This video is going to be more fluid, and you might feel a difference between the voice recording quality as compared to the 30 frames per second mode, because I have noticed that a difference comes in when we switch the resolution. I don't know how that works, but let me know if you can find any difference. This one is now full HD at 30 frames per second on both the phones. Just a quick clip to give you guys an idea how is the stability and overall look of the video in this particular mode on both the phones. Now I'll take you into the camera specifications of these phones and then camera app, and then rest of the video will just follow. So stay tuned and let's check these phones out now. First of all, let's get the camera hardware of these phones out of the way. The A52 and the A72 both have a 64 megapixels main camera with optical image stabilization. A52 has a depth sensor too, while the A72 has a telephoto camera instead of having a depth sensor. Other details of these cameras are on your screen. Quickly taking a look at the camera applications. The camera applications on both phones are 100% same. Both phones offer the Snapchat Fun mode. Both phones offer a dedicated 64 megapixels mode, and both phones offer 60 frames per second video recording from the front and the rear cameras in 1080p resolution. Other options of both the camera applications are on your screen. We can now move on to the camera comparison. Let's start it off with the selfies this time. Selfies for the most part look the same on both the sides. The differences that I find here are between the saturation. Saturation is slightly higher on the A72. Details also seem slightly high on the A72. Color tone is the same on both phones. Edge detection on both the sides is equally good. A52's selfies have a slightly soft look. In some instances, the A72 can blow off the highlights in the background of the selfies, as you can see here. The highlights are controlled on the A72, but on the front, once again we have better details and saturation on the Galaxy A72. The A52 has a slightly pinkish tone on the face. I like the selfies on both phones, and it comes down to your personal preference. A high-res 32 megapixel selfie, the differences are very minimal once again. There is a depth in the colors of the A72, otherwise it's just the same image once again. Is it just me who's finding the differences here, or these selfies are the same? Let me know in the comments about the phone that you like more. I will now show you a series of high-res 64 megapixels normal and ultra-wide images. Throughout these images, the only thing that differentiates these phones is the depth in colors. A72 produces punchy colors, and the colors look a bit flat on the A52, resulting in a fade look. These differences remain the same in the normal mode images too. In the ultra-wide images, the A72 takes the lead with high details and better color management. A52's colors are not as vibrant. Now in this high-res image, the dynamic range on the A72 is superb. Shadows are too dark on the A52, it's a very good image on both the sides. So you guys have to be super picky here. The normal mode image once again retains the same differences. I am impressed by how both phones are going neck and neck so far. The ultra wide image, look at the sky, those highlights on the top left, very good image on both sides once again. Now here, look towards the top right side. The details and dynamic range on the A72 is just too damn good. In the high-res mode here, A72 is performing good. You can literally see those clouds which are blown off on the A52. The overall details on both sides are quite high because of this picture being a high-res. Some more high-res and normal images for you to analyze. I have a hunch that these phones are using the same main camera sensor and the image processing might be same as well because both phones are using the same chipset. I can't tell what is making these phones output different colors and details. Samsung has probably used different image processing algorithms on both the phones. It's really difficult to declare one phone better than the other. Both are performing good in their own categories. In these images, keep your eyes on the sky in the background and also on the orange colors and let me know if you can spot any difference here. The dynamic range to me looks better on the A72 once again. In these images, check out the color of the sky again, the grass and the ground too. The sky is more bluish on the A72 and the grass has higher details on the A72. Check out the details around the Ferris wheel. Many of you have been asking me if that 8 megapixels telephoto camera of the A72 is of any value. Well, here are the images shot from the telephoto camera of the A72 and on the other side I am zooming into a 64 megapixels image shot on the A52. You can see if cropping an image is a better idea or having a dedicated telephoto camera is going to be a better choice. This is 3x, 10x and 30x of the A72 versus a cropped in image of the A52. My own images and now you can see that vibrance in the colors of the A72. After seeing this, you will definitely go towards the A72, but remember that the A52 is outputting the colors close to reality. It's not adding that extra depth or that extra shine to make this picture look catchy. The portrait mode also has the same differences again. The depth effect on both handsets is super good. This is an image of my nieces and on the A72 you can see that added saturation on the face. Shadows on the A72 are better on the face. Both phones are keeping the shadows somewhat appropriate, but I find them slightly better on the A72. I like this picture on both the sides. The same image in the portrait mode, edge reduction on both the phones has improved a lot and the depth effect now looks stunning too. This is now another collection of the rear camera images in broad daylight and some images were taken indoor. These images are here for you guys to analyze. So take a deep look at all these images and drop your own analysis and observations about these particular images in the comment section down below. And I'll catch you in a bit with the macro camera images. Macro camera on both the phones is the same. A greenish tint can be seen on the images of the Galaxy A52 at times, but how often do you use a macro camera? What's the practical use of this camera when the macro images you take are going to have a poor resolution? I am not a macro camera fan, and so I really don't stress upon its quality either. The night mode images are now on your screen. A72 can still not take ultra wide night mode images. I wish someone from Samsung sees my video and brings the ultra wide mode to this phone's night mode. Night mode on both the phones performs equally good. I can't find any real differences here. The images are almost noise free, details are high, and with this we approach the videos. Both phones at the moment can capture 60 frames per second from both the front and the rear cameras. On both phones, you can switch from ultra wide to wide camera while recording a video, and you can see me doing just that right here in this 4K at 30 frames per second video clip. There is optical image stabilization in both phones, which basically works in the 1080p mode, but the optical image stabilization doesn't seem very good at the moment. Samsung needs to work on the stabilization and improve it further. These are very new phones, and I am sure improvements will happen over time. So as far as the camera performance is concerned, the main camera on both the phones is almost the same. A72 has slightly better ultra-wide camera and a dedicated telephoto lens too, but if you found the A52's ultra-wide performance as good as the A72 and you can live without that telephoto lens, I think the A52's camera can definitely suffice most of your everyday photography needs. Anyways, let's move on to the speed test. This is not your typical speed test. I am going to throttle both phones. I started this test off with 100% battery on both the phones, same Wi-Fi, same settings, same high 90Hz refresh rate. All updates were performed on both the phones prior to this test. I started this throttle test with N22. Both phones are using the same chipset. Now this chipset is a huge debate. Samsung says it's using Snapdragon 720G chipset. None of the CPU or the specs apps show 720G in this phone. Some apps show just the Qualcomm Snapdragon chipset, and some apps show Snapdragon 732G chipset. Primary difference between the 720G and 732G is of the graphics processing. Otherwise, these are the same chipsets. Whether we have the 720G or the 732G, the chipset on both the phones is the same. I am using 8 gigs RAM variants of both the phones, and my A72 has 256 gigs of internal storage. A52 has 128 gigs of internal storage. After the first N22 cycle, the score on the A52 is about 284K and 282K on A72. Quite similar. CPU temperature on both sides is also the same, 36 degrees. A72's battery has dropped 1% and A52 is still at 100%. The temperature of both phones ranges from 33 to 35 degrees. Quite surprising, isn't it? The stats for the first run are the same. I'll now run the second cycle to see what happens. A72 is now down to 272K and A52 is down to 276K. Battery on the A52 is down to 99%, down to 97% on the A72. Temperature of the A72 ranges between 34 to 38 degrees now. The phone doesn't feel very hot in the hand either. And wow, the temperature of A52 is also between 34 and 38 degrees. CPU temperature on both the phones is 37 degrees now. This is getting interesting now. Let's launch the third and the final N22 benchmark cycle. After the third cycle, the A52 score is down to 250k, A72 is down to 243k, A72's battery is at 95% and A52's battery is at 96%. Temperature of the A72 has hit 39 degrees for the upper limit. Otherwise, its temperature keeps varying and it's 33 degrees on the lower side. A52's temperature also ranges between 34 and 38 degrees once again this time. The CPU temperature of the A52 is 37 degrees and A72 is at 38 degrees. It's time to run 2 cycles of the Geekbench benchmark application now. After 2 cycles, the battery of the A52 is at 94%, A72 is at 93%. Temperature of the A72 has hit 40 degrees at this time. Temperature of the A52 has hit 39 degrees. Both phones are going neck and neck once again. Now I will run the wildlife stress test using the 3D Mark application to put more stress on these phones. It is a 20 minutes long test and it can make these phones go completely wild. With the 3D Mark wildlife test coming to an end, both phones maintain a good temperature around 37 degrees. The phones do not feel hot in the hands again. The 3D Mark score is on your screen and once again you can see that the A52 maintains a lead when it comes to the battery percentage thanks to its smaller screen. I did a small speed test between these phones. This time I just edited some photos and videos to see which phones perform better, and to my surprise, the A52 performed faster for video editing. The phones tied for the photo editing, and in the end, the A52 once again performed faster in the Vivo video application for the same video clip. Let's move on to the next part now. As you can see, both phones share the same design. The build is also the same. Plastic build on both sides with a plastic frame. The button placement on both sides is the same. Both phones have a headphone jack underneath. There is a dual stereo speaker setup on both the sides. The hybrid SIM card slot is also the same on both sides, and both phones support microSD cards of up to 1 TB. Where is the difference then? Well, it's in the screen size. A52 has a 6.5 inches Super AMOLED Full HD screen with 90Hz refresh rate. A72 has a 6.67 inches Super AMOLED Full HD screen. Both screens are protected by Gorilla Glass 5. Both screens output the same amount of brightness, same colors. I don't know why the A52 screen flickers in front of my camera. This one makes it really hard to record the front on my camera. However, I tried my best to reduce the flicker. As a result, you might not be getting the best video quality when I am showing you the screens of these phones. Anyways, both phones are also water and dust resistant. I've already explained the differences in the camera, the software features. All of this is the same across both phones. I did find a difference between the feel of both phones, but that's going to be a subjective choice. I am using the black A72 and the white A52. Black A72 has a rough matte finish which doesn't feel very premium. White A52 has a soft matte finish which feels premium. The white A72 might have a same soft finish too, which is why I am not going to declare this phone's feel bad. So I feel more comfortable and confident while holding the A52 as its size is more practical for average sized hands. The big size of the A72 also accommodates a bigger battery of 5000 mAh, and extra 500 mAh is a lot of battery juice, but it has a bigger screen too. A72 also brings a 25 watt charger out of the box. A52's battery is of 4500 mAh only and it comes with a 15 watt charger, but it does support 25 watt charger too, just in case you want to get that. You saw how both phones performed in my 1 hour stress test. The A52's battery dropped less than the A72's battery, and that's quite surprising because A72's battery is smaller and it's got a smaller screen too. But to add life to that bigger screen of the A72, it has got a bigger battery. Even then the A52 performed better. So you guys be the judge here and let me know which phone do you think is going to last longer in a day. And this now brings us to the conclusion. Choosing one between these two is going to be super confusing. So I will just explain the clear differences to make it easy for you. A52 is about $70 to $100 cheaper than the A72, depending on the region obviously. The extra few dollars for the A72 give you a bigger screen, bigger battery, 25-watt charger out of the box, an extra telephoto camera and a better ultra-wide lens, slightly more colorful or vibrant images. For about $100 less you get the A52 with super practical size that offers the same design, same build and almost the same feel. A decent battery with a slightly less powerful 15-watt charger out of the box, the phone that produces impressive images if not so great, and that has a performance equivalent to its elongated variant. So when it comes to picking one between these two, go with the one that meets all of your needs and that falls right inside your budget. Don't stress it out too much. Both phones are equally good and you won't regret having one of these. I hope things are more clear for you now. If you have any questions, ask in the comments below, hit the like button if you found this video useful and subscribe if you haven't yet. With that being said, I will sign off and see you all in the next one.